Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Grant Cameron, and this is a special little presentation I want to do. So whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on my podcast, Paranormal UFO Consciousness Podcast, thank you for taking time from your valuable schedule to join me. Today I want to do a presentation on awe and curiosity. If you've listened to some of my latest rants on various shows, I've talked about this, that it is awe and curiosity that motivate science, that move us ahead. I've just had a situation where this is my friend Margie, and Margie is an experiencer who is also a channeler. She is one of the more favorite channels of mine, and she just had one session where she posted, I'll get into it in a bit, that was basically a home run ball. It was I had to do a podcast based upon this presentation or this latest channeling message that she got. So we go to the situation today is that a lot of people want to know what's going on, who's covering the whole thing up, and there's a lot of curiosity. People are demanding to know, even though the situation that exists is legally now a situation where, unless you have the security clearance, you do not have a need to know. And these security clearances are so high that there's just nobody that can get access to it. And it's what's called a waived, unacknowledged special access program, in which the security clearances are so high that almost nobody has access to it. And even the admission of the program is a violation of national security. So these people simply aren't going to talk. But people are very curious. They think that they have a right to know about this. And this creates a lot of curiosity as to what's going on, who's behind the scenes, and what are UFOs, and what's really going on. Now, this is a thing that people have speculated on, and I said it really doesn't matter who's running the show or what they know. It's more interesting or valuable to know what our role is. Why are we in this situation? Why have we chosen to come into the world at this time, in this place, and get involved in this mystery? Because there's only a few people that are actually interested in the UFO. The vast majority of the public really aren't that interested. They're curious as well, but they're not going to spend any time trying to research it. So this goes back to start where I wrote a book called UFOs Area 51 Government Informants. This is the first book that was written on Area 51. We were researching it. T. Scott Crane and myself were researching this as Area 51. The story was unfolding in 1988, 89, and 90. This book was published in 1990. And one of the things that we had during that book, we had the Area 51 story, and we also had a person who is the highest level official that I've ever seen anybody had, other than one short conversation with two presidents, President Bush and President Ford. But other than that, this was the highest level source I think that anybody in the UFO community had. And his name was Dr. Eric Walker. He was the executive secretary of the Research and Development Board in 1950, which is in charge of all the weapons. He was on the board. He was a trustee on the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis in 1950, which started in 1956. 1958, he was on the board when the Institute for Defense Analysis began DARPA. It was first called ARPA, and then it was added the D, and it was called DARPA. They are the ones that basically run the black budget programs. He was there when his organization created DARPA. Very high level, had 14 honorary doctorate degrees, was at one point the chairman of the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis, which is the top military think tank in the United States, and ran one of the four big Navy labs for the United States, the co-developer of the homing torpedo. And as he told us when he was interviewed in 1987, I've known of MJ-12 for 40 years. You leave it alone. There's nothing you can do about it. So he knew all the people. He was very close friends with Vannevar Bush. He actually taught at the same university, Tufts University, with Vannevar Bush's sister. He was very close friends, and actually got Vannevar Bush, when Vannevar Bush left the Pentagon, Eric Walker got his office. So I want to bring this up to sort of talk about Eric Walker when we confronted him with the idea that people need to know. And at the time, he was in his 80s and said, come on, you're an old man. It's your chance to tell the world what's actually happened here. And here's basically what he told us. You jump to hasty conclusions. He was being asked about the Roswell crash, the 4 dead aliens at the Roswell crash. He said, you jump to hasty conclusions. Maybe some walked away. Maybe some did not walk away. As I said, it is none of your business. Just to satisfy your curiosity. It is not going to do any damn good except to make you happy. Is that not true? Are we to change all the plans and the regulations just to make you happy? If you say that you are looking for the truth, you will never get it anyway, so forget it. So his basic premise was, this is classified, you have no need to know, and we are not going to change our plans, whatever the plans are, to use this technology on the Russians or to stop the Russians from getting this technology. That there are rules and regulations to protect this material, and just because you're curious or you have awe and curiosity, which is the name of this presentation, because you've got awe and curiosity doesn't mean that we're going to roll over and give you everything that we've got on the subject. This is a national security issue, and you guys can basically go to hell. That's what he was telling us. The guy that was interviewing him from Great Britain said, but why should I not get it, doctor? And he answered, why should you? And he was basically confronting. So he actually added this thing, which I've asked a number of researchers, and nobody really has an answer for it. He said, you're delving into something that you can do absolutely nothing about. So why get involved with it or be concerned about it? Why don't you just leave it alone and drop it? Forget about it. And then he added this. This is in the first interview in 1987. Then he said, this is the question I ask people, and I really don't get an answer. Then when you find out everything about it, what are you going to do? It's the old idea of the dog catching the car. What does the dog do when he finally catches the car? And Steinman says, I believe this entire matter has to be brought to the public's attention, and the people should know the truth. It's not worth it, said Walker. Leave it alone. So this is this awe and curiosity. So Walker said, I don't care if you're curious or if you're in awe of what's going on. You don't need to know. Leave it alone. Go do something else. He even said at one point, unless you have the mind of Einstein, you're not going to get very far with this, and you're up against the windmills. Just leave it alone. Now, again, we get this whole idea, and this is where this awe and curiosity thing comes from. There was a program started called OSAP, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, which went and spent $22 million. Now, the reason they went and spent $22 million is because Lukatsky from the DIA and a bunch of his buddies in the Middle East were reading the book Hunt for the Skinwalker, and they were fascinated in all the paranormal phenomena that were happening at Skinwalker Ranch, and decided it would be a good idea to go to Skinwalker Ranch, look at all this paranormal phenomena, and see if there was anything that the DIA could learn from it in terms of developing technology and weapons. And that's why they spent $22 million. It was the awe and the curiosity of the Skinwalker book that got these guys to go to Skinwalker Ranch and investigate. And again, it was the awe and the curiosity that drove the science. It wasn't that they didn't have anything better to do or they needed to spend $22 million. It was because they were looking for answers. Now, the awe and curiosity extends on to what I call the theory of wow. And what I say is that the phenomena, people will complain about the phenomena I'll mention in a minute, but my theory is that the phenomena is doing what I call the theory of wow. They're not really doing anything. They're not here to steal our gold. They're not here to take over the land. They're not here. They're basically just here to create awe and curiosity. Or in another way I phrase it is that they are here to shatter our naive reality, to get us away from the 18th century Darwinian nuts and bolts view of the world and realize that there's this paranormal phenomena, which means that a lot of the stuff that you believe in the world is not true. There's something else. If the paranormal phenomena is happening, there's something wrong with the science. So they're basically just doing these weird things to get us very curious. And again, what happens is when they make you curious, you start to investigate. If there is no paranormal phenomena, there is no research because nobody's curious, nobody's in awe, and nobody's going to do anything. It's only when you have these bizarre pieces of metal falling, you have crop circles, you have objects flying around with lights on them, you have cattle mutilations taking place, you have reports of manifestations disappearing and appearing, you have people talking about being on crafts and being on the crafts and flying the crafts. And you hear these very bizarre stories that get people to decide that it's worth putting money into it, or time and money into it, to try to figure out what is going on. And that's when you get that kind of stuff that you make the discoveries. As Gary Nolan from Stanford University said, I'm not interested in the 95% that falls within the bell curve, that stuff that we already know. I'm interested in the 5% outside the bell curve. That's the idea is that's where the Nobel Prizes come from. That when you start studying things that don't make sense, you discover things that we have wrong in our reality. So the theory of wow is the way I describe it. And all I'm saying that the phenomenon is doing is they are creating awe and curiosity. Jim Semivan points this out in his experience. Jim Semivan was a high-level CIA official, and he had the beings in his room with his wife, and he describes the phenomenon. He's got the briefings. He said he knows where the legacy programs are, and importantly, he's the guy that went to the three-letter agencies and said, you guys can't get this out. We're going to disclose. We're not going to release classified material, but we're going to force it out. You guys had your chance. And this all comes down to an experience he had. He describes his experience. It comes close. It teases us. It cajoles us. It lies to us. But you can never take it home to meet the parents. It won't allow you to do that. And that's part of the awe and curiosity. They're never going to land on the White House lawn and give you a little left brain lecture in terms of what's going on. They're just doing the theory of wow thing, and they're making you figure it out. So Jim is very upset about the experience he had in the 1990s, but I think we have to realize that if Jim had not had the experience, he would not have been curious. He would not have been in awe of what had happened to him 30 years later, and he would never have gone to the three-letter agencies and forced disclosure. It was only because he had awe and curiosity by his experience in the 1990s. So whatever he holds against the intelligence that grabbed him, they got him to do what they wanted to do, and that is move the ball down the field and try to explain what's really going on in the world. And this is basically my theory of wow. Martin Luther, the famous theologian, also describes this. So we talk about the aliens not telling us what's going on, not taking us home to meet the family, but the whole point is that God does the same thing. So the question that was put to Martin Luther, to put it bluntly, was why doesn't God get off his fat rear end and come down and tell us what's going on instead of playing these sort of mind games? And this is what Martin Luther, this was from supposedly from a channeling that was done with Martin Luther, and you may believe in channeling, or it was actually a mediumship session. You may believe that or not believe it, but whatever, this is actually the way it is. Martin Luther said the reason God does not make himself known is because doubt is the instrument which forges the human spirit. If the day were to come when the human spirit no longer doubted, the spirit would fly off and leave the body behind because it would have forged wings. God is the sower and man is the harvester. The celestial seed demands that the plowshare remain in the furrow of life. So he's basically saying doubt is part of it, the awe and curiosity that you're trying to figure this thing out. If you know all the answers when you come into the world, you're not going to do any research. You know everything. You don't really need to do any research. Now, getting back to Margie. Now, Margie has a small group that she runs on Facebook, and she calls it Messages from the Guides. You can see she has 633 members. I got her to do a book. She hasn't published it yet. The book is ready. She does 2 channelings a week, and basically just writes it down and puts it on this little site. She doesn't make any money from it. She doesn't promote it. She's done a couple interviews with me, but other than that, she is totally unknown to anybody. But I think her material is one of the best channeling sessions that I've seen in terms of what they're saying. And the reason I'm doing this presentation is because the one they just did, she does 2 a week. The one she just did this week is absolutely that same story. You'll see that they were dead on the mark. talking about this awe and curiosity. This is where I say that it's basically a home run over the center field wall up into the second level. So the channeling says about asking questions, and many are the questions you ask. Questions lead to learning and progress as you seek answers. Questions lead to more questions, and then there are always more. Questions keep you from getting stuck in one place and move you forward through your days. Questions keep you interested and lead to excitement as you find new directions. You may find that answers to your questions are seldom complete, but lead to even more questions. So perhaps you might say that it is the questioning that moves you forward and leads to growth, interest, and excitement. It's called the theory of wow. It is awe and curiosity. The questions, they want you to have questions and more questions, because that's what gets you interested and excited and leads to growth, because you start to look for the answers, which leads to more questions, which leads to more answers, which leads to more questions. So this is the old idea. Why does God and the aliens not take you home to meet the parents? And it's basically because if you knew everything, what's the point? Why would you do your kids' homework and give your kids the answer? The idea is for you to sort of figure it out. It's this sort of a game. Awe and curiosity are what drives science. If there's no awe, there's no curiosity, there's nobody who's going to invest any money in research to do any experiments. It's the awe and curiosity that move it. No curiosity, no need for answers. So you can see that you have even the beings, I've pointed this out a number of times, according to the free survey of 4,000 odd experiencers, 40% of the experiencers say at one point during their experience they knew the answer to everything in the universe. And when they came back, they said, I'm going to remember this, I'm going to remember this, and they didn't remember it. And so the idea is that the intelligence behind the UFO phenomena already knows the answer to everything, because they allowed the experiencers to get it. But they pull it away from you, because what's the point of allowing you to bring all the answers back? They pull it away. Same as when we come into life, we would know all the answers, but as soon as we come through, we go through the river of forgetfulness to forget that we knew all the answers to play the game. Because if you know all the answers, there's no game to be played. Near-death experiencers have the same experience. 31% of all near-death experiencers say at one point during the experience they knew the answer to everything in the universe, and they also have it pulled back from them. So they know that all the material is there, all the answers are there, but they were not allowed to bring it back. Then you have the shared near-death experiences, and there's one particular one, I just put this down because I think it's kind of, people are sort of aware of shared near-death experience by the guy who wrote the book Hunt for Zero Point. His wife had a shared near-death experience. Her mother was dying. She was holding onto her mother's hand, and when her mother died, she had this experience that only she had, where she was in a field of knowledge, and she said that she knew the answer to everything in the universe, and that everything was absolutely perfect, but she was not allowed to bring the material back. So the answers are there, but the material is withdrawn for us for a reason. So that's where I want to leave it. This is something that maybe will calm people down in terms of the UFO phenomena, because people get very upset and they think that if they get the answer, then everything's going to be better. The best thing is to work on the questions, get answers, and as I have always said, this thing is going to be 1,000 times more complex than what people think it is, and we should just enjoy the ride and realize that the universe, the more we explore it, we're not going to get all the answers. We're just going to realize that it's more and more and more complex, and we will come to realize that the world is a very magnificent place, and we should be thankful that we actually got to play the game. So thanks for listening, and keep up the awe and curiosity, keep the research going, and have a good day, and thanks for listening.